Nonprofit and philanthropic leaders devote their lives to the service of others, but sometimes they need a little help. Kristine Michie has been deep in the work and the play of helping changemakers grow their impact for decades. So whether you're ladling soup at a local shelter or attending a UN peace conference, you need to find the balance between the heavy work and a light touch so you don't burn out. And Kristine believes play is at the center of that. Welcome to the Playful Podcast, bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world.
Everyone, welcome back to the Playful Podcast. Kristine Michie here. I have 3 guests today. This is very indulgent of me. I didn't want to choose, so I wanted to have all 3 of these wonderful women on today with me. We have Nikki Dinh, we have Iman Mills Gordon, and Ericka Stallings, all with us on the podcast today. And this is our Innovators and Disruptors series. And as you listen in, I think you'll hear themes of that in equal measure to themes of joy, play, and love, which is always centered. But I got to tell you, this is the first time 2 of my 3 guests actually have love and joy in their bios. So I'm loving when that happens. All right. So if you would each just come on and say a quick hello. Give us what do you want to say first that you want people to know about you, personal, professional, just like a little affiliation to start off with. And then we're going to have a little bit more fun with some introductions. And we're going to play a quick round of one truth, one lie. All right, Nikki, I'll have us start with you.
Well, hey everyone, I'm Nikki Dinh. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm based in the beautiful Lonely Land in Oakland, California. And I think I want folks to know, and I always introduce myself in this way, is that I'm the daughter of boat people refugees, actually in a long line of fishermen in Vietnam. So I'm very proud of my lineage and where my family has been and where they are going.
Lovely. So good. And just in terms of the professional affiliation, I will let folks know that both Iman and Nikki are with the get my L's right, leadership learning community. I didn't want to switch my L's the other way around. The leadership learning community. Okay. How about you, Iman?
Iman Mills Gordon, she, her pronouns. I am also on a lonely land in Oakland, California, and I lead with that I'm born and raised here. Went away for a little bit and happy to be home. And then something that you're going to hear from me and people always hear is that I'm a mom, and it's through and through. It comes up with everything that I talk about, so I'm sure it will come up in this space too.
Fantastic. Welcome. So glad you're here. And Ericka, I think you and I are the collaborators that got this whole thing stirred up in the first place. So glad you're here, Ericka. And thank you for introducing me to Nikki and Iman as well.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Ericka Stallings, she, her pronouns. And I'm here on Lenape land on the other coast in Queens, New York, Queens being the best borough. And I'm a wife and a daughter and an auntie. And if you were to ask for my work affiliation, I'm the senior director at the Robert Sterling Clark Foundation.
And which is dedicated to work in your neighborhood, right? It's a New York-based foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Right. All right. So now you guys, and I got to tell the audience, and those who are loyal listeners will know this is so fun. The first time that guests have asked me if we could play on the podcast, which now we're going to have to do it every time. So we're going to play this round of one truth, one lie. And let's see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start. All right. And so we're going to do one of each. So here's one. And then Ericka, you're going to get to guess. We'll each guess one for one. Here's the 2 things about me. One is I played the flute in the UCLA marching band. And the second one, I was once a spokesperson for a cereal company.
I'm going to decide that you don't play the flute.
Okay. Yes, you're right. Okay. So I was a spokesperson for Cheerios. I wrote a book called Cereal for Dinner I was a mom with 2 young kids and I had a cardiac arrest. And I wrote a book about being a mom and going through an illness, and cereal for dinner being that idea of just get it on the table. Doesn't matter what it is, cereal for dinner. And one thing led to another, a little bit of my gutsiness, a little bit of just working my network. And I knew somebody at General Mills' advertising agency, and the art director had dropped the graphic on the cover of the book was little Cheerios. And I ended up like approaching him going, I want to do a spokesperson for Cheerios. And I got to do it. And I went on this 21 city media tour and talked about Cheerios is good for your heart health. It was very fun. And I played the flute in 8th grade only and not after that. So did not make it onto the marching band. Okay, Ericka, what are yours? And Nikki will guess.
Nikki knows mine pretty well, so now I gotta switch it up.
Were you a spokesperson too for Cheerios, Ericka?
Just once. Okay, here are mine. I can deadlift 185 pounds. And the other is I went to junior high school in Queens.
I want to say you didn't go to junior high school in Queens just because I want to hear you talk about deadlifting.
You're my friend. I can't deadlift 185 yet.
Yet.
But I will. But I will.
I believe it.
And for those uninitiated like myself, deadlifting, is that the one where you're laying on? No, that's a bench press. What's deadlifting?
It's when you are picking up weight as though we're dead weight and you're just using your legs. And so you're not pulling up with your arms, you're just holding heavy weight and you just go up and down, almost like it looks a little bit like a squat.
Okay. Is it like one of those big, long, kind of like barbell things?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I use what's it called? It's like a deck.
Man.
It's a little thing. The weights are kind of surrounding you and you stand in the middle of it.
Aha.
And then you like pick it.
Excellent.
A rack. It's called a rack.
A rack. If you want to share images of this in the show notes for the audience later, feel free. And it sounds like 185 is a goal.
185 is a goal. I'm at 155.
Wow.
Hey, you're on your way.
But I'm on my way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, some of the nutritious, delicious ice cream that I'm going to be sending you could be helpful for that,
totally
I'm sure.
Fuel, in fact.
I have faith.
All right. Let's see. Iman, will you do yours? And Ericka will guess.
Okay. I was part of the circus club in elementary school, and juggling scarves was my specialty. I've had dogs my whole life, and I've learned a lot about play by watching them.
Whole life. You have a dog now, but have you had one your whole life? That's the tricky part. Okay. I'm gonna say the lie is that you had dogs your whole life.
Hey, great job, Ericka.
Okay, so juggling scarves?
Juggling scarves. And I was at elementary school, I was really interested in being part of the circus club where you got to learn all the things about being a member of the circus. And juggling scarves was like my thing. I was super into it.
Were they like in little balls, or were they like?
No, they're like like the colorful. Yeah. So in the pandemic, when we were like at home, I got a whole bunch of scarves, mostly to have dance parties, but I kind of like started doing juggling again. Yeah.
Can you juggle other stuff too? Is it a transferable skill?
There was a point in my life where I could do like tennis balls, but
Uh-huh.
I haven't attempted that again.
Okay.
So I don't know.
And no meat cleavers or anything like you
No,
see.
definitely not. Handing out meat cleavers to 6th graders, like, try it. Let's see. Yeah.
That sounds like a lawsuit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Nikki, you're last, and Iman, will you guess?
I will guess.
Yeah.
All right. My high school cheerleading team went to cheerleading nationals, in Florida the same year that Bring It On came out. And my other fact is that I own a commercial size claw machine as an adult, and I fill it up and play with it very often.
You did pretty well there because
Hmm.
I know there's a Bring It On tie and I know cheerleading is real, but I don't think it was the same year if you went to Florida. That I think that's the lie.
No, that's the
Oh,
truth.
that's the truth.
But I have a miniature claw,
You have a
commercial grade claw machine, not a
miniature
full size
claw.
one.
You really got me on.
Because
That
I
is
knew you had a claw
I know she
machine.
has a claw machine. Exactly.
so that might be, folks, a bit of a wish list item that Nikki's just shared with us. Just like Ericka wants to go from 150 to 185, Nikki wants to go from small to big on the claw machine.
Now we
Maybe
know.
there's a
Solo scale.
GoFundMe in here. Okay, I love it. This is so fun, and this just fits perfectly because we're in this time, right, where the work you all are doing is more needed than ever and in some ways harder than ever, but I suspect you're making it more joyful than ever because that's just the spirit I'm catching from all of you. So let's just start out with talking about the leadership learning community. There's also both a term and then another affiliate organization, Network Weaver, that and anyways, I just want to talk about community organizing, and I want to talk community organizing in this moment, and leadership of organizers and organizing. Who's just dying to get us started on what you're doing right now, and how folks who are listening can both be inspired by this conversation and then take an action.
I can get us started. We are a learning organization first and foremost. It helps us orient ourselves to what the purpose of being in strategy, being in like all these very, consequential spaces is to still be learners at the end of the day, to keep improving. And so that's what we try to help leaders learn too. So the origins of this organization really was when the founder saw that there was a lot of competition within different sectors in the social good sector, and that learning could be a way to break us out of competition. And as the years evolved, and especially under Ericka's leadership, we really started adopting the methodology or developing a methodology around liberatory leadership and also around networks. And really what that invites in is that we want folks to kind of continue in that learning stance, but also in the community building stance, and not just in the way that I think corporations and a lot of nonprofits maybe have adopted this idea of scaling in this like very corporatized way, colonizing kind of way of spreading the good practices or good research or good services that we offer, but in a more human-centered, liberatory-centered way of in network speak, it's like closing the triangles. It's trying to make sure the connections are made from folks who are already closely aligned but haven't met each other yet. So I think that's a little bit of our methodology in these days, and how and like our wish for the world is more human-centered connections and more joyful human-centered connections. Iman, what would you layer on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. That's the work that we're doing, is figuring out how we are moving just work in just and joyous ways. And a lot of our work, always, and even more so in these times, are thinking about how we bring leaders together to really think about what liberatory leadership looks like for them, for their organizations, for their communities, how they can be in that practice of infusing joy and imagination and dreaming, and the how of how this really hard work, especially right now, can not just drain you, how it can also feed you and lead to the world that we want to see. And so being part of that work is even part of what brings us joy right now, to see that, to be in conversation with folks around that and see it rippling out is a big part of what's bringing us joy right now.
Nikki, you mentioned sort of like the colonizing framework that is kind of just like that fish in water thing, right? Like we didn't even, I'll speak for myself. I didn't know, right? Like that just like Robert's Rules of Order, perfect example, right? Like that's how we have to run meetings. Well, it says who, since when, but that was just the way all the meetings were. And then if you were going to run a meeting, you like grab that playbook. And we're sort of saying like, we don't have to grab the same playbooks, right? And like leadership kind of the image that comes to mind is, a person or some people above or in front of a group, in front of a group in a stage area or an audience room, and or in the front of the top of the table or whatever. Tell me about, I'll go to you, Ericka, about the liberatory framework and how right now, and we talk a lot about imagination on the podcast. I mean, just that moment of like, wait, like, just kind of like, say, nothing about how we've done this needs to be done this way anymore. And yet, be open to, are there good bits and pieces to bring forward? So I'm curious about liberatory framing and how critical is that term? And do you want to define it at all as you answer as well?
Sure. So, I mean, the liberatory leadership work came about because for years we had used the term equity in our work. And I've been thinking about how to talk about this, and I got inspiration from America's Next Top Model. The-
Oh, cool.
so I watched only the first episode of the Netflix special, and I was looking at it, and it's a story about exploitation. It's a story
Yeah.
about greed. It's a story about ego. It's a story about a lot of horrible things.
Mhm.
And if you listen to Tyra's narrative, when she explains it, it's a story about making a bad system better and more inclusive.
Mm.
And I watched that and I thought, if you take something crappy and you make it less crappy, it's still
Mhm.
crappy. And trying to like reconcile that with the fact that change doesn't happen overnight, it doesn't happen quickly. And so there you're in this period of time of just it's crappy, but increasingly less crappy.
Yeah.
And so when we were talking about equity versus during the pandemic, it was during George Floyd, and then the term equity, having like an equitable part of this crap such system
Yeah.
felt so wrong. We were just like, this is not what we're interested. This is not it. And liberatory leadership, naming liberation as the goal, it gives you something to look for and like describes what we're about. So it's not about like, let's just make things less crappy. It's about we are making things good. We're making things liberatory. We're working towards this liberated future. And we understand that there are periods of time where before we get to this future in which we are just constantly making things less crappy. And um, so we're stopped. It's, the thinking changed from like equity versus
Yeah.
liberatory to understanding that equity is a part of the process, and like making things more and more equitable, less
Mm.
and less crappy is part of our path towards a liberated future. Um,
Mm.
which I think ties back to play because
Mhm.
sitting around and watching Tyra and Mr. and Mrs. J talk um about like this television show, this reality TV show, which is feels, in some ways like pretty inconsequential, even though the impact on people's lives was pretty consequential, was in some ways a way for me to think about like how does liberatory leadership fit into all of this? And so like as I think about myself and my leadership over time, like I think I started out doing stuff that just made things less crappy
Mhm.
and just like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
instead of like doing our meetings with rules of Robert's rules of order, we could do this. Let's add a game or let's open up. But it was still the same. And then you
Yeah.
go right back to like, those same rules
Yeah.
until over time, until we think about like, how are we making things less and less crappy? And then thinking, okay, I understand that this is still a process. We're still growing, but my vision, my orientation has shifted. And so
Yeah.
liberatory leadership shifts the orientation to say, like, what is
Yeah.
our actual vision? Not the process that we make, that we go through. Well, not the mechanisms, but our
Yeah.
actual goal.
I love it. Yeah, because the making it less crappy, swapping out the meeting agenda kind of stuff is assuming without stating it, but is proving out that you're assuming that is unchangeable. That thing we can't change. So let's tinker, let's lipstick on a pig or whatever those other metaphors can be. Nikki said something about leadership as a way to bring people together and people closer. Of course, I think about play often as a way to bring people closer together. I'm curious about, wait, did I say it right? What I wanted to say is learning. Is that what I said? Did I say it? Yes. That you said learning is a way to bring people together. Um, I love that. Iman, you're nodding. Tell me about how learning can be the bridge.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, so I'm putting thoughts together around that too as we're speaking, learning as the bridge. Well, I think we think a lot about um this idea around being in learning stance and experimentation and how that can really bring down these levels of risk, right? And as much as you said, like play is somewhat like that, right? So it brings down some of the level of risk and it opens you up to what the possibilities are. And so then you're in that act of like looking for a solution and looking for a solution, you start to see bridges more often than you see roadblocks. And so I think that that becomes like a baseline for collaboration is that you're in this space of I'm learning, I'm okay with mistakes. I'm okay with my own. I'm okay with yours. Let's figure out how we can move towards solution together. And that becomes the main focus as opposed to I have this right and I'm like pressure testing it
Yes.
and learning is something I did when I was a kid. Like now I know. And so I need to
Yeah.
be out there and proving that what I know is right as opposed to I'm in this experimental learning stance and let's try on things together.
And I guess, kind of, I'm doing like definitions in my head right now, but like learning by definition is suggesting you don't know enough yet. You want to know more. You're unsure if what you know before is still true. All of that is embedded in learning. Nikki, can you talk a little bit about you're one of the folks who's got joy, love, resilience, resistance all in your bio. Um, have you do you feel at all that it's risky or it's perceived as indulgent, like even kind of maybe said that at the beginning, to be playing, especially when things are so hard right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you are grown adults especially in the Western world, you have been socialized to believe that work where you get paid and community leadership where you're like really building out something critical and like consequential in your neighborhood or community that you lead, um, that there isn't room for that, that you really have to be almost in strategy mode, right? In like high executive functioning mode all the time. And I think as we were uncovering our understanding of play and liberatory leadership at the same time, we really saw that play is actually necessary.
Mm.
To activate another part of your brain is necessary for you to break out of the system that you're trying to change. Because the pressure to use only that like side of your brain that takes tasks and does strategy and has targets and goals, is not, it's the same side that the systems we have
Yeah.
are built around. And even when we did our own research on like where does strategy come from? What is the genesis of this and that? We're like, oh, everything goes back to violence, war, to control, to power. And
Yes.
that wasn't the world that we were trying to build. So integrating this was pretty essential now. And it's not just a nice to have, it is a essential practice to break us out of our normative.
Thanks, Erica. When you launched the effort, was play predominant in your mind, in your methodology, or did that emerge?
I wouldn't say that I launched it.
Mm,
I'd say that I was on a path with other people,
yeah, thank you.
and uh, and we sort of came to an understanding together. And I've taken many trips on this road with different folks. So there's the
Mm.
Liberatory Leadership Partnership, there's the LLC folks, and we've been on this path of discovery together. Um, and what was your question?
Oh, was play in the early times? And thank you for making
Yeah.
sure I didn't do that thing of what I did. I kind of did an old style thing. Who was in charge of this when it started? Pick somebody. Oh, it's you, right? So thank you for the reframe there.
Sure, sure.
There's been a group from the beginning of people coming together on this. Was play early on a component, or did it emerge from either the research or just the experiences?
I think play was always present. but it wasn't always named.
Mm.
We always played. I remember. I don't know if you remember, Iman, where we or if you were around in the early stages when a few of us, there were 4 Black women who were coming together and saying, "Let's explore this liberatory leadership business," and we'd had a bunch of different conversations, and we wanted to pull them together, and we called them Prince Hands
Yep.
because that it like to mimic a dance that Prince did with his hands to like describe work coming together. And so there was always a levity to the
Yeah.
work and like a playfulness to the work.
Yeah.
I think there was like a reclamation of humanity and our wholeness that allowed for that. But in the kind of way that we're talking about play here came from the work that we were doing with LLC. I think Nikki brought something to the space that unblocked something for me. And then we got to vibing with each other. And, I think I started talking with her about this book I was reading about play. And I was like, isn't it wild that I got to read a book to figure out how to play? I don't think I know. I was like, I don't think I know how to play. And like, I'm reading it and I'm thinking about why play matters. And like Nikki had brought all these playful things to LLC and there was just kind of like um, a circular learning. So it's not a linear like, oh, the A plus B equals C. Like you just, there was this one direct path, but like all of these like organic ways, like circular ways, like Nikki
Yeah.
talks about like the ways in which that water moves and circular like curves.
Yeah.
And so I think we came to liberatory leadership and play as a liberatory practice through curves, not straight lines.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
Iman, you got to say something. Come on.
I was reflecting on this and thinking just a lot about like we hold space and we hold space for folks to really take off other hats that they have to wear and kind of be like in recess mode almost where they're socializing and connecting concepts and playing together and reflecting for themselves. And when you were speaking, Ericka, I was thinking that originally that like start of LLP and LLP in general felt like a space for that, right? It was like we have this idea of what we want to be speaking about and seeing in the world, and let's play with it. Let's think about what we're talking about, put it down on paper and kind of socialize it and hear back from other folks what they're thinking and continue to play with it and iterate on it. And so in that way, it was always infused in the spirit of the work. And I love where Ericka started with like it wasn't necessarily named as play or it wasn't necessarily now we're getting our claw machine out or gonna play Uno together. But the energy was like one of we are in relaxed exploration.
Yeah.
I want to like put a person's name in the space.
Yes.
There's Melvin Giles, who he's a community elder who passed away, I think it was last year, who was in the St. Paul, Minnesota area. And like if you look him up, he would be called like the bubble man or things like that because he would blow bubbles and he would call it peace bubbles and he would bring joy and levity. And he was a community elder who brought in younger people and joined some of LLC spaces. And at one of our events at the BIPOC Affinity Group, we were talking about play, and he said, "How do y'all play?" And I was like, levity and playful and having a good time and levity and we joke and we have such a good time. It's so great. And he was like, yeah, but how do you play? And I was like, we're playful and we do this and we joke and we have fun. He was like, yes, but how do you play? And I was like, oh, how do we actually play?
Yeah.
And like I took it back to the group and I was like, wait, and then we started talking about it because LLC has that sort of like learning, reflective energy. So the team said, oh, what if we played like this? What if we actually did a game? What if we actually did this? Like, what if we actually played instead of just being playful?
Yeah.
And like, what's the difference and what does it mean? And so that I think really did shift how LLC approached play as a liberatory practice.
There's this model of these 8 different play personalities that Dr. Stuart Brown has there's a quiz, to get to it. And it was so he's been on the podcast. I got to sit with him in his tree house in Carmel, California, where he was 92 at the time. That was a couple of years ago. But it's a fun thing to think about, Ericka, and that you're just prompting for me, is that if you look at the different, like explorer is one of them, collector is another one of them. And so it's a way to think about all the different ways you could bring play in. And I've been guilty too of being like, oh, well, I just got my very nothing wrong with a playful spirit. That's a great place to start, but kind of intentionally activating it through some different activities. Nikki, I want to ask you about the connection between justice and joy. What can you share with us about that?
That I think folks who have been doing justice work and are living justice work have a lot of joy in them. If you observe people who know justice, pursue it, and they've done it for a really long time, they laugh. And I think that's telling of how important that element of joy is to justice. And I think the analogy for us is liberatory leadership is the joy, is the humanity, is the beauty, the art, the music. That's liberatory. That's our humanity in its best space, right? But humans are also really messy and flawed, and the systems we create that mirror who we are, perhaps, or mirror some parts of us, needs work and causes harm and causes a lot of hurt, actually. And right now in 2026, I think a lot of us are feeling a lot of that hurt. So I think, yes, we have to have that fire of justice work. We really do. And something Ericka Stallings has said in the past is, well, if liberatory leadership work is water, then let us make steam. Let us have another route of, to feel what is needed in this world. So I think both are needed, justice and joy, in order for us to have the type of journey that we're meant to have.
Yeah.
Can I add on, just because this is very present for me right now, because we had the Black Joy Parade in Oakland yesterday. And it came to me that, like, in a lot of ways, joy is justice. Like, us reclaiming our joy is justice, which is a like painful thing to note that we like the structures have moved it from us in such a way, stripped it from us in such a way that it becomes justice. But I also have noted, like, it's just one of those things that I see and feel whenever I take a moment to imagine what liberation is. It's one of the themes that come up when we encourage other people to imagine what liberation feels like. It's like joy is that, like, the core. And so I just really thinking about yesterday, the Black Joy Parade, and what that stems from, and how necessary it is, and how that then means that, like, us experiencing joy and feeling it wholeheartedly is in and of itself justice. So I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I was thinking, like, that Tricia Hersey's book, Rest is Resistance. I'm thinking there could be a whole series, Joy is Justice, Love is Liberation, all that. Did I step on somebody? Ericka, were you about to say something?
I was just gonna say that, like, one thing I would like make sure that is present is the fact that this is a conversation about power. Who gets to have joy? Who gets to play? Who gets to rest? Whose love gets to love, and how? These are conversations about power. And, like, I bring it up because I've been thinking about, like, the wellness industry and the self-care industry, and the way we've taken from, like, spiritual practices like yoga and meditation and things that are supposed to make you bigger and broader and in some ways selfless, and we've used them to make ego machines. And folks are, like, more self-centered, and maybe even smaller. And so, like liberatory leadership is about being bigger, it's about being, wider, but it's about power. And so I want us to, I'm thinking about I don't know, Iman, if this is happening for you, but I'm thinking about Chinyere, who's the executive director of the Center for Third World Organizing, and is one of the folks in the Liberatory Leadership Partnership. And what I've appreciated about her is that she's very disciplined. And in terms of, like, strategy and like keeping her eye on the prize and her North Star. And so like justice and joy and all these things, these are all part of our path to liberation. And so I don't want liberatory leadership to be mindfulness or whatever that people utilize as an ego machine to like, or an ego tool to say that like, I'm doing liberatory leadership by having a good time. Is your good time part of is it putting us on the path to liberation? You having a party and having a good time while the world burns can be, you know the difference. Maybe it is part of the liberatory practice. Maybe you are reclaiming your humanity. Maybe you are helping other people remember theirs. Or it could be self-indulgence. And you have to, the only way you know this is your intent in that moment. And so like, as we're talking about like what, I don't want us to like lose track of that. And it's so easy to do because like so much of the world is like pulling us away from joy, pulling us away from play, pulling us. And so like, you just want to gravitate to it, but there's a purpose and there's a, not productivity, but there's a purpose that for me, like when we're talking about liberatory leadership, that needs to be embedded in that.
Yeah, let me layer onto that because I think what I really loved about how Ericka and Iman framed the definition of liberatory leadership is they really talked about it as collective responsibility. I mean, I think a lot of times when we always say play as an entry point to liberatory practices, and I think sometimes that means for folks like, great, I can skip the hard part. I could just jump to the fun, which good, you should if you haven't had that experience. But I really like how you all put together that definition. So let me read it. Let me read it out loud. And it's in the Liberatory Leadership Framework. Right. They write, we believe that liberatory leadership means taking responsibility for collectively transforming our freedom dreams into reality by freeing ourselves from oppressive and limiting self-beliefs, harmful interpersonal practices, and divesting from and changing systems of harm that rely on domination and extraction. For those of us leading from within movements and organizations, this means creating, refining, and uplifting life-giving policies, structures, and practices that combat oppression in our organizations and our communities. Our working definition is informed by our organizational policy and practices and experiences and so many others that we've been partnered with. So I just really appreciate you calling out this collective responsibility. It's not an individual one. It's one that we hold each other up for, but there is that element of, we got to take care of ourselves and we can't just this is not just about the easy for some people to jump to part. So thanks for bringing that back, Ericka.
Yeah, thank you so much for all that. It sounds like maybe the not the only, but the most important part to do solo is the solo reflection about whether or not your playfulness, your joy practice is for the collective. And that's a question you have to ask yourself. Especially, I mean, you guys can imagine, I ask myself this all the time in this moment, like, I'm the lady eating ice cream with people on Zoom. Like, is that helping? Right? I really, I have to keep checking and hoping, right? And just kind of like praying, please, God, show me my role, right? What's my role? And is this that? And how authentic is that? And what I hope to receive back is watching and listening and feeling your energy and going, okay, this is something, right? But I want to make sure I'm leaning into it, not because this is just more fun than, working on a strategic plan or something like that, right? It's really good. The collective, I was listening this morning, Oprah was interviewing on her podcast, and sorry to the author, but his book is called Awe, and it's something about the science of wonder. And his number one thing that he said he had like an 8-list kind of thing. His number one thing was collective, and I think it was enchantment, but it was collective was the word. And I'm, Iman, thinking about the Joy Parade yesterday. Like, when you're at a concert or something, everyone's having that same experience in the same moment, and you're imagining we're probably all having the same goosebumps from that collective awe or wonder. tell me about when you bring groups of leaders together, how you see that happen. Iman.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm thinking about, let me think about it. I'm trying to think of a specific example.
Yeah.
When we bring groups of leaders together, and I'd say that the chill bumps that you described may be more quiet, right?
Mm,
It's like a space where you know that you have been held, that you have had an opportunity to reflect on things that you have been grappling with, and have been at the surface, but maybe you haven't had space to like name,
mm,
um, or to consider or to bounce off ideas with another person. And so there's uh, I don't know if it's like therapeutic is probably not the word. What's a better word, Nikki and
mm.
Erica? There's a
Healing.
healing element to it. Um, and a lot of times, like we hold space for folks who, we have like ED circles or affinity groups where they're having a similar experience away from each other. And
Mm,
then when they get to come into a
mm,
space and hear, oh, I'm not alone. They're very much a I'm not alone. Oh, this is resonating with you.
mm,
Oh,
mm,
you're trying that on too. Can I hear some resources? Like just that space. Um, and it has been very grounding, as well as, well, what we hear back is it's very grounding, as well as offers opportunities to build on what they are trying to do in their respective organizations. And of course, I invite Nikki and Erica to add on anything that's coming up too.
It's funny you should ask this question about collective awe because my husband and I play this game where we like it's like a music game where we like try to each select a song that meets a theme.
mm,
Um and it's always like organic. And the this over the weekend, the theme was like chanting, like
mm,
songs that incorporate a chant element.
mm.
And we went across genres. It was like R&B, soul, hip hop, gospel, and it was just like this sensation of this collectively being in the same emotional space, and you can feel it in your body when the chanting happens. And it wasn't like Gregorian chants or anything like that. It was
Yeah.
just it was incorporated into different forms, and you could see, like you could feel it in your
Mm,
body. Like you're like, oh, yeah, you're ready to go
yeah.
when you hear the chanting. And we have a sibling organization called Change Elemental. And a few years ago, I went to one of their events, and collective singing was part of
Mm,
the process. And there was a coming together, even though for many of us, it was like, what the hell? This is weird.
yeah.
And we're singing this song together. We're in tune together, and we're
Yes.
appreciating the sounds together. And there is a sense of like being together.
Mhm. Well, I guess, what we know to be so from science is that all of us are just a collection of electrons and things vibrating. So is the table, so is the ice cream we're going to have in just a minute. So that to have a vibration in shared song, that makes sense to me. All right. So I mentioned the ice cream and I don't want to lose it. So Iman, feel free to go pick up your ice cream.
Okay.
Erica, you've got something else you're going to bring. And Nikki's having some iced tea, which sounds very disciplined. Do you have anything even naughtier than that?
Um, I ate a few cookies this morning already. So
Okay. So you've had enough cookies.
yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, while they're stepping away, if I may, let me ask you to frame up a little bit about how people can get involved. What should people know about looking up what you're up to, and is it something people can join, etc.?
Okay. I did want to layer on to what Erica was saying though, because she
Please.
mentioned healing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to name like I think more than ever, we hear from leaders in the social goods sector that there's a lot of mistrust, distrust, lack of trust in the air. And that lack of trust is vertical, like, used to be that you could trust the CDC if you had
Mm,
something going on or you were looking to see what the public health situation was.
right.
And maybe that's not exactly where you go these days. there's lack of horizontal trust. There's this idea that there's many social media has allowed us, especially in this era, to confer with other people when we have things we want to trust. Like I go to Yelp to see if the ice cream is good or not. I check. I don't know who these people are most of the time, but I check. They're not ice cream, experts, but I still check Yelp for what their input is for that ice cream. And then there's like inner trust that was breaking because we're getting so much data in, we're getting so many people telling us how we're supposed to be and what normal looks like. And none of these people know us, but then it's kind of helping us like take away trust from ourselves too. Or maybe there's just so much going on that we can't quiet enough to get to know ourselves. That's why we talk about inner work and self, reflection space is so important. And then there's a rise of, and you probably noticed it in the last several years, especially when large language models became more accessible to everyday humans through OpenAI and Claude and Anthropic and so many other spaces like Google. There is now a growing amount of synthetic trust we have to deal with and reconcile. And to me, synthetic trust, if you have a young person in your life and they are asking their machine, their agent, before they ask you or their peers, growing pain stuff that we used to talk to each other about to get confirmation, get to affirmation. It's not happening anymore for another whole generation and slowly with all generations. So when we say healing, coming together and being together in person, like together in person or virtually in a community of practice or in a learning space, a learning circle of some sort, it actually rebuilds trust in all those levels. That's what I think that's what we mean by like how our specific work lends to healing.
Wow.
It's something that humans really need in these times. So to learn more about that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, gals, while you stepped away, I asked Nikki to kind of, can people, like, how do they join, sign up, all of those kind of calls to action piece. But I am so glad you didn't get right to that. And we did those trust definitions and descriptions: inner trust, vertical trust, horizontal trust, synthetic trust, and the healing that your spaces bring to build and rebuild trust. So thank you. So folks, if you want to rebuild trust, if you want to do some of these things that we just heard about, here's how you would join, find, etc. the groups.
Yes, but you can find us online. We're at www.leadershiplearning.org. Leadershiplearning.org. You can also find us on Instagram and LinkedIn on the same handle. We also mostly update through our newsletter, so please remember to sign up for our newsletter. And then on our network side, we're so proud to be the curators of Network Weaver, which was led up by June Hawley for many years and now led up by our organization. And you can visit the network tools and resources that we post there through networkweaver.com.
Excellent. Okay. So we've got some treats and snacks. I've got this Ben & Jerry's Ava DuVernay flavor, Lights Caramel Action. This is always one I go to, and it's vanilla ice cream with salted caramel swirls, graham cracker swirls, and gobs. I love that word. Gobs of chocolate chip cookie dough. All right. Iman, what did you get?
Amazing. I have Ben & Jerry's chocolate chip cookie dough. Yeah.
Ericka, what did you bring?
Because I'm dedicated, I baked some cookies this morning.
No way. I love it. So folks, today, this will air in a few weeks, but this is the day of a big blizzard in New York City, so deliveries were not available. So Ericka, good job having the ingredients for chocolate chip cookies in the house. Well done.
I'm prepared. Emergencies. Come on.
Nikki, what kind of cookies did you have earlier?
I had a strawberry shortcake cookie and a banana like Foster cookie. It's fantastic, from a bake shop in Hayward, California.
Yum. Good to know. Okay. So as a last bit here, and this is the play on words with eating ice cream or crunching a cookie, but we say, what's the scoop on how you came to care? So a little bit of your impact origin story. Nikki, you had shared in your bio, and I love that you do that. And you said you always do that, about being the daughter of boat people, refugees, the fishing history in your family. could you each share a memory, an early memory of that kind of sense of, the world is bigger than me and just the folks around me, and I've got a role to play. I feel some responsibility to making these other things better than they are. And Nikki, I'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, I think I feel so lucky. We just celebrated Lunar New Year in my hometown, which is an enclave for immigrants from Central America, Mexico, Pacific Islanders, and also Southeast Asians. And so I grew up in this neighborhood that was just, my perspective as a child growing up there was just so boisterous, and
Mm.
the music was always flowing. The karaoke was like on point. Dancing and culture was so alive. And I think that really like inspired me as an adult to really feel like those were the elements of care. Those were the elements like
Mm.
this was probably, if you looked at our data and our like where I went to school, the public schools there, you probably saw like really grim data, like, oh, this is a really
Mm.
low
Mm.
socioeconomic area. This is like a, large like violence, like lots of violence, lots of, disparity like data in my neighborhood. But as a child growing up there was so much joy and love and care that surrounded me that we could have it all. We could
Yeah.
experience like all the bad stuff that comes with being underinvested in and, being also attacked as like a very predominantly immigrant and refugee and people of color community. But we also felt our humanity and our essence of why we're in this life and what is our purpose here. So I really do think that that's how I came to care. This community I grew up in, this like very diverse hodgepodge of like
Mhm.
folks that have, I just makes me laugh, like we're always cracking up and we're always experiencing joy. So that practice is real, and its practice is necessary for us to remember in these times.
I love it. Do y'all know Trabian Shorters at Beamy Community? Oh, he's been on, and his whole thing is asset framing, and in versus deficit framing, and in the nonprofit sector. I mean, I shared with him. He was on the podcast. I shared with him when I did a grant writing workshop in 1993 at UCLA Extension. But the first thing is like learn how to write a really good problem statement. Right? It was all, and then I mean, for decades, that's how I approach that part of the work, the problem statement. And I've been really working to talk about imagining a different practice. Like that isn't how you start. And Nikki, it was undeniable how you feel about where you grew up in just watching you share about it. Even in the limited capacity to feel the energy from Zoom, I could feel it exuding. So thank you. All right, Iman, could you share next?
Yeah. I feel like I haven't shared this here, so let me take a step back. My like memories are my parents talking to me at dinner. We had a lot of conversations at the dinner table. We ate together every night. And they instilled a lot in me around the importance of really finding pathways for all people, especially Black people, to experience a free and humane and joyful existence. And I've said that I believe that is just passed down through the generations, through our experiences of what we need to do in order to be our best selves within these systems. But they really instilled that in me just in our conversations, telling me about what was going on in the world, as well as their work. My mother was a public school teacher. My father worked in economic development and in various nonprofits. And so it was like the worldview as well as like what they were actually doing on the ground. And I also came to this world with just like a really strong care and maternal instinct. I don't know, I don't know how that fits except for like I just like want to care for the people who are around me. That's just very strong for me. And I didn't always know what that meant in terms of my role
Mm.
in this world. There was a long time when I wanted to be a doctor. And then I kind of married what my parents have talked to me about and really focused on education policy and education equity. And got burned out of that for a lot of reasons. And so, what's something I love so much about being at LLC is that it kind of offers some space to get down to the granularity of the world that we want to see. Like, how does that look? How does that feel? What are the characteristics, and how do we create that together? And I just think it's been like a real true marrying of my values of joy and love with also keeping that North Star of like, let's get to collective liberation. Let's keep infusing those values and get to how we see this world be better. So
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna finish up with you, Ericka. What can you share with a sort of an impact origin memory?
For me, it's about observations as a kid. I was a very quiet child and very much of an observer. Like my brother thinks it's hilarious that when I was a kid, like I hated to like ask for extra ketchup, like at like a fast food restaurant.
Oh.
Like that was just too much talking for me with a stranger. And he's like, and now look at you. So I was very much of an observer. And I observed both how to care and what the things that we care about are. And I have a lot of memories of being like in the back seat, looking out the window and watching the world around me, or being on a school bus and being bused from my neighborhood to another school and going through different neighborhoods and seeing both diversity but also inequity, and being curious about like, why do some places look like this and other places look like that? Why do some places look nicer than others? Why do places look healthier than others? Why do places look cleaner than others? And what is that about? And so that curiosity about inequity came from observing the world around me. And Black children are more likely to be aware of race and racism at younger ages. So that was apparent to me. And then how to care is from the adults around me. And there's a set of women who I call my village ladies, who were the people who took care of me and supported my family, and my family supported their family, and we supported each other, and we were connected to each other. And they kind of have like the auntie role in my life, and some uncles as well, but the caretaking felt really directed by the women in the group. And they were models for me about how we care for one another in very different ways. It's why distributed leadership made a lot of sense to me, because they weren't all good at the exact same things, and they didn't have a president, a secretary, and treasurer, and they didn't have Robert's Rules of Orders, and they got stuff done. And so, that for me, like when I was at, LLC, and the way I got to hold space for people was one way of exercising care. And now that I'm at the Robert Sterling Clark Foundation, I'm exercising that care in a different way by supporting the work of folks who are doing the work on the ground, and in the world. And so, Robert Sterling Clark has a trust-based philanthropy model. And so like exercising that trust in other people to do things as they know it should be done, is another way that I get to like express care. And show up in a world that feels like an alignment with my values and makes sense to baby Ericka, who might not have anticipated that she would be doing this, but this is what the impact that she wanted to have on the world.
Okay, we just have scratched the surface. Thank you for this conversation. Folks, please do check out leadershiplearningcommunity.org. And as a starting place, you can get to all of these other things, Network Weaver, et cetera, also from there. And Ericka, I saw you put in the chat about deadlifting. Okay, we're gonna make sure we thank you for that. We're gonna get that and share that so people. That's exciting, and we'll have to let us know when you get to 185, and we can give you a little shout out.
I'll keep you posted, and
Excellent.
Maybe by the end of the year.
Thank you all so much for all that you're doing, all the joy you're bringing, and I will look forward to keeping in touch and staying abreast of it and sharing it out. And thank you for what we say, bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to the Playful Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review it on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know of a leader or organization that's doing good in the world and you'd love to help us help them amplify their message, I would love to have them on the show. Go to the show notes and click there, or go to impactfulinc.com/contact. And that's impactful with 2 L's, inc.com/contact. And let us know who you're thinking about. Can't wait to see you next time.